snow with a slight chance of freezing rain. Snow accumulation up to 1 inch. Near steady temperature in the mid-30s. North winds 10 to 15 miles per hour. Chance of precipitation 90%. Tonight, cloudy with snow in the evening, then partly cloudy with a chance of snow after midnight. Snow accumulation up to 1 inch. Much cooler with lows in the mid-20s. North winds 5 to 10 miles per hour. Chance of snow 90%.
Okay, we're hanging out at camp, and I brought the stove up here, but I still couldn't find the stovepipe sections, so I've ordered some more, and hopefully they'll be here within a week or so, and I can go ahead and connect it up to the stove jack. Run the pipe through the stove jack and have a wood stove going in here. Of course, it's not going to be sitting on those wooden boards. It's going to be sitting on the way I did it before is I had a steel 55-gallon drum lid, and then some couple of stacks of bricks on top of that with the stove sitting on the bricks, and I'll probably do that again, or put the bricks on something, some kind of piece of metal or something fireproof anyway. But anyway, I've got a little fire going outside, and it's been really super wet. I mean, it is super wet. We had some pretty severe weather come through last night, because when I did the clip of the weather radio talking about snow, it did snow. In fact, I think it was snowing at the time, and but then it warmed up for a few days, and then rough weather came through last night and blew away the warm weather, so now it's down in the 30s. It's not super cold, but it's supposed to be in the 20s tonight with heavy wind and potential snow, so we'll see how that goes. Anyway, obviously if I had the stove going too, I wouldn't have that radio on it. And speaking of which, I discovered a few minutes ago that out of the 7 VHF weather channels, I can receive 5 of them here with that radio. But anyway, so let's move on. I'm kind of hungry, so we're going to fix something to eat. And I'm using an El Cheapo little tripod. I hope it doesn't fall over or anything. But here's a cooker that I didn't just get this or anything, but I've had it at least 10 years, probably more like 12. And I'm going to go look outside because I keep hearing something moving around, and it's probably just a squirrel, but I'm going to go look anyway. Hold on just a second. Okay, I don't know what it was, but it stopped when I went out. Alright, since we're dealing with picked up things and thrift store things, we're going to go with a homeless guy in the woods kind of thing. So, you know, if when we're homeless, instead of hanging out like so many of them do in the city all together and asking people for money, I'm not judging them or anything, but here's what I would be more likely to do, is come out to a patch of woods somewhere and set up a camp. Of course, I wouldn't be able to afford a tent like this if I were homeless, probably. Although, you know, I don't know. It's possible that one could get in a situation where they were homeless but could afford, you know, the money for a nice tent. Because this tent, even now, it costs a lot more now than it did when I bought it 10 or 12, about 12 years ago. But 13 years ago. We determined that, actually, 13 years ago. And it costs a lot more now, like 3 times as much. But still, it's, you know, I mean, you would certainly pay that much per month for rent. And so, if you were having to rent an apartment, or especially a house, you would certainly expect to pay the price of this tent every month to have a home. So I could certainly see being in a situation where you would be better off buying something like this than to continue to pay rent that, you know, like you lost your job or whatever. But enough of that. Bottom line, what I'm getting at is, so you're homeless and living in a tent, or, you know, you might have to start out in a debris hut or whatever, but you, of course, you could sit around the campfire all day and hunt and fish and, you know, cook something to eat on your campfire and so on, but that's time consuming. It's fun, but it's pretty time consuming, and it really cuts into your picking up cans on the highway time, so, or your day labor time or whatever, because you lost your job, right? You still need some money, and if all you do is pick up cans on the highway, that's still a little bit of money, so you can buy some food. But of course, you're trading, as in anything you do to make money, you are trading time for that money. But the good thing is now you've got money to buy food instead of having to be dependent on your hunting and fishing skills and foraging. And of course, I wouldn't be totally dependent on that. You know, I would buy some cheap dried pasta and rice and things like that. But anyway, we're going with the idea of you're living out here, you're going and picking up cans or doing whatever to scrape up a little bit of money, so you don't have a whole lot of time to fish and hunt and cook in camp. So therefore, and this is what I'm getting at, you buy yourself some soup, canned goods. And I've always liked this bean and bacon soup, and it's relatively inexpensive and very filling, and if you got some crackers to go with it, it's a complete protein too, so it's fairly nourishing. And on to the cooker. I bought this thing probably about the same time that I bought this tent, 10 or 12 years ago, or 13 or something. And I found it at a thrift store, and I probably gave about $1 for it. I'm sure I didn't give much more than that, but I think, if I'm remembering correctly, I think it actually came with this can of sterno. And the sterno has a price tag of 50 cents on it, but I think I probably gave 50 cents for the sterno and 50 cents for the little cooker. And the sterno says that it's good for 6 hours of, no it doesn't. It says 2 hours. 2 hours of burn time. Now there are some that are 6 hours. But this is, you know, even at 2 hours for 50 cents, that's not bad. But here's what we're going to do. Now, I picked up this can, and I showed it in the latest video about the abandoned house. And I picked this up from the corner of the bedroom of that house where somebody had thrown it away. And I guess it had Vienna sausages in it or something. And so I decided to make the simplest possible alcohol stove out of it. This is aluminum, so it's nice and light. And I just used the awl on my Swiss Army knife to punch some holes in it. They're not big enough to make it burn really well, and probably not enough of them either. But it does work. Actually, I tried it with 91% isopropyl rubbing alcohol, and it worked with it. And so what we're going to do today, though, is I've got some actual denatured alcohol, which makes a much better fuel. In fact, it says it right on the label, fuel. And denatured alcohol is probably 99% alcohol, and it is it's ethyl alcohol with something added to it, maybe methanol, I don't know, whatever. Something added to it to make it poisonous, so that you know, people won't drink it. But it makes a good fuel. And we're going to use that. And I haven't actually even tried that in the little can yet, but I expect it'll burn better than the isopropyl alcohol. But now, one more thing. I've got camping sporks and so on, and I thought about bringing one of those, but then I thought, no, with the homeless thing, what's the guy going to do? He bought himself a $1 cooker at the thrift store. He's probably going to pick up a 10-cent spoon while he's there. And that's actually a better tool than a spork anyway. Although, funny story about sporks. Let me pause it here for a second. Okay, back when, I guess Taco Bell was fairly new, or it at least was fairly new in the area, or maybe it was just fairly new to me because I was a teenager, or early adulthood, or something like that, early 20s, something. Anyway, I started going to Taco Bell sometimes, like on a Friday or Saturday night or whatever, with friends. And the two things I liked the most were Mexican pizza and Pintos and cheese. So I usually got those two things. And in fact, that's still what I usually get. But the thing about Taco Bell at that time is the only tableware they had, eating utensils that they had, were sporks. Nothing else, just little plastic sporks. And of course, a spork was the worst possible tool for eating a Mexican pizza. And but I managed, and I probably complained about it, but since it was what I had, it was what I used. And so the bottom line is, I've got 30 years in learning how to eat Mexican pizza with a spork. And so now, Taco Bell starts putting plastic forks, knives, and spoons out. And that ain't right. So I found me another Taco Bell that still puts sporks out, because, you know, I've got all this time learning how to eat a Mexican pizza with a spork. I want a spork with my Mexican pizza. But that's not what we're using today. We're using a real spoon. And let's go ahead and start with the bean and bacon soup and put it in the bowl along with some water. And this stuff doesn't look much like soup at all until you put water in it. It's not like chicken noodle soup where you can eat chicken noodle soup just as it comes out of the can, although it's better to put some water in it. But with this stuff, it comes out as a paste. So you could eat it that way. In fact, I could imagine situations where I would just eat it out of the can without even heating it. But I'm sure it's better heated. Just as it is better with water in it. Now what I like to do is make sure the water's not going to spill. What I like to do is take my spoon and kind of stir around in the can to get as much of the food out of the can as possible, and also offer the spoon itself. So, let's take that off of there now. Alright, I'm going to go outside and pour the alcohol in the can because I don't want to risk spilling it inside. Okay, hopefully this is not going to be a problem. There it is. Now, because this has small holes in it and it's not the most efficient alcohol cooker in the world, I'm hoping that will work to my advantage, because the thing about an efficient alcohol stove is it's efficient in terms of putting out a whole lot of heat and boiling water fast. And I don't really want to do that because I'm heating soup, I'm not boiling water. And if it just comes to a boil, fine. But I don't want it to cause the soup to stick to the bottom or anything like that. I tell you what. Oh yeah. I can see steam coming off of it already. Yeah. One thing about this cooker is that I can't really, I can feel heat. But from this angle, being above it, I can't see the flames. You can hear it heating up. Oh. Anyway, yeah. I can feel the heat coming off of it, so that's not a problem. Can't see the flames because they're obscured by this thing. But I don't know that this is any better than some of the hobo stove type contraptions. probably not as good, but we'll deal with that later. Right now, we're using this because, you know, it's a cheap thing that I picked up, and it's something that that somebody who has found themselves recently homeless might be able to find at a thrift store or whatever. And I mean, I don't have any
From 1,700 feet high above the sea, this is W4HS, the repeater.
anyway, yeah, I don't foresee any chance of becoming homeless or anything like that. I'm just, you know, things that go on in my head sometimes. And actually, it was something that my family and I were talking about recently, because somebody approached my mother and asked her for money, and she didn't feel safe even being around the guy. You know, she is not necessarily opposed to giving somebody money, and has done so before, as have I, in fact. But she felt threatened by this guy, and she didn't want to open her purse and take out her wallet with him standing over her, you know. And I don't blame her. And so she told him no, and he cursed her then. And so we were talking about that, and myself, my mom, and my wife, and later on, my wife and I were discussing it, and discussing the fact that so many of them aren't really in need. They're, you know, they choose to be out there. A lot of them aren't even homeless, in fact. They're out there pretending to be homeless so that they could get money from people. But I don't want to get too much into that, because I know there actually are some people out there who are in need and are homeless through not necessarily any fault of their own. And so I don't want to you know, I don't want to lack empathy for those people, because, you know, I could be in that situation myself. But let me pause here. I don't know how many minutes I've got on here. So anyway, my wife asked me, if you were to find yourself homeless, suddenly, and out on the street with no money, what would you do? No money and no resources, basically. And so we had a little discussion about that, and then I thought about it some more later on, and basically what I told her is that I'd head out in the woods, find me a little patch of woods somewhere, and not on some individual's land out in the boonies, but on, you know, preferably public land, but far enough out that I'm not going to be spotted. Or actually, it would probably be best if it were some little piece of land, unused piece of land somewhere fairly near a small city or town, because it is good to have access to some things that you'll find in town that you won't necessarily find out in the boonies. And so this is kind of what this came out of, is just thinking about that. Just a mental exercise, if you will. I believe my soup is beginning to get warm. Yeah, kind of warm. but the little alcohol burner is still going fine. I'll tell you what, it would probably heat quicker if I had a piece of aluminum foil or something to put over it, or a plate. That would be a good thing. Have a little plate that I can put over it and trap the heat, because that plate would come in handy for other things too. I don't know, is the camera catching the steam coming off that? There's quite a bit of steam coming out, so it's definitely beginning to heat up. I should have brought some pepper with me too, but I didn't bring much. And pepper would be good, but there it is. So, not to prolong the video, let's go ahead and shut it off, and there's really nothing else to see from this point. The soup is warm and quickly becoming hot, and I'm going to eat and then head back out to the campfire. But I look forward to doing future videos from this camp, and including some more cooking videos, and maybe some more elaborate cooking, you know, more from scratch type cooking, or from semi-scratch anyway, and probably some different types of cookers too. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching.